next year, about 500,000 people are going to be cut in tech alone.
You're way off. You're way off.
What?
It's going to be double that.
There's two options. You either have to become the best user of AI in your function today, or you need to think of reskilling yourself into some other part of the economy.
If you're not on a daily basis learning how to improve yourself with AI in tech, what are you doing?
Let me just be extremely clear. Now is not the time to excuse yourself from the quote unquote rat race. Now is not the time to start a yoga studio. Now is not the time to become a certified Pilates instructor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Topline. It's your host, Sam Jacobs. I'm the CEO of Pavilion. I'm joined by my excellent co-hosts, AJ Bruno, the CEO of Quotapath, and Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about the employment market, the labor market. What's going to happen in 2026? Are we going to go through a recession? Is there going to be a pickup in hiring? Is AI wiping out jobs at both ends of the supply chain? And are semiconductor manufacturers and chip manufacturers like NVIDIA the new landlords of the global economy? We'll find out in Topline today. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Do this.
All right. So what's the answer? We can make this a 45-second episode.
The agent needs to go to the train station. We need to be quick here. We are going to be talking about layoffs, the ones that are happening, Amazon's 30,000 white-collar jobs that have been cut recently. We're going to try to predict exactly how many people are going to be cut in 2026. So stick around for the prediction. But first, we're going to start with our new favorite segment called Quiz Pro Quo. I knew you'd like that.
We got it. Asad has been thinking about the name of this for the last 2 weeks.
Let's give the man credit. Let's give the man some credit. He landed the plane.
So what is Quiz Pro Quo? I am going to ask Sam and AJ 4 multiple choice questions to test their knowledge of the tech ecosystem, but also to provide a frame for the rest of our conversation about layoffs this year and what might happen next year. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm always born ready. Here we go.
So the first question, easy one. The total number of tech companies in the United States of America. Sam, your options are 502,000, 702,000, or 902,000 companies.
I'm 702,000.
That was very precise and very good. How do you know this?
Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Oh, this is all. I'm a poker player, Asad. I'm just looking at your face as you read each choice. It has nothing to do with the information. I play the man, not the hand. And I saw your resting heart rate ticked up a notch when you read the middle choice. I say, Asad's the kind of fella that asks, he puts the right answer in the middle. He's not going to give it on the first try or the third try.
Oh, no. I'm going to have to.
Also, Sam, you got the warm-up question. Like, Asad,
so sure you wouldn't get it. Loser, AJ.
This is week 3, and now Asad's all of a sudden directing questions at us, and we can't just jump in. He's got to frame these up.
I love QPQ is my new favorite part of Topline.
So here's the interesting thing about this stat. One quick fact. Last year, it was 585,000 companies. So we have gone up from 585,000 tech companies in the US last year to 702,000 this year.
We're definitely not in a bubble. Definitely not in a bubble.
That's crazy. That's wow.
That's wild.
And I mean, and coupled with what we're going to be talking about with the labor market, fascinating trend.
Question number 2, AJ. Total number of people working in tech in the United States of America today. Options are 13.7 million, 15.7 million, or 20.7 million people.
Oh. Where do we think his heart rate went up in that one? I'm going to go with 15.7, B. You like the middle, B. Final answer.
I'm going to choose the middle each time. Like, you have to give me some more tact than that.
I didn't even hear the answers. I was like, Asad just probably went
What's the first one? 13? I'm going to go with the first one.
It is 13.7 million people.
Got it.
And something interesting is that every year for the last couple of years when I track this number, the total number of people goes up. But this was the first time since I've tracked this in the last 4 or 5 years where it has gone down by a little bit. About 20-ish thousand people have left the tech workforce in the last 12 months.
Ooh, wow.
Interesting. Okay, question number 3. Sam, total number of layoffs in tech in the
Third
US.
choice.
Your options are 112,000 people have been laid off this year, 212,000 or 312,000 people laid off in tech in the US this year.
Oh, I think it's 112,000.
That's
Two
you are
B.
very right.
Going with B.
No,
What is it?
he is right. It is
Oh, man.
112,000 people.
Man, Sam went 3 for 3. I could just see his ego right through. I'm looking at him. He is on cloud 9 right now.
You're projecting, AJ. I'm a humble man. I am a...
The fun fact on this one is last year was about 150,000. So it's come down a little bit. But what's really interesting is last year, those layoffs were across 551 companies. And this year, it is across 218 companies, which means the average number of layoffs per company is up 86% year over year. Of those who laid off way more people than they were laying off before.
Well, all right. Follow-up question to you, Asid. And here's the question. Of that 100 and some odd thousand, that is, what percent do the top 10 companies across those 200 and some odd companies represent? Is it 72.1%? Is it 84.1%? Or is it 93.2%?
What a good question. I wish I really knew the answer. I'll take
As do I. I wish I knew the answer.
It feels like it's in the 70% range.
I made everything up in that last question based on the hypothesis that it's a small number of companies that are chopping huge numbers of people.
Yeah, I would think that it's the first one. Because if you look at Amazon chopping 30,000 people, that's a big chunk of that. That's like 30% of those people. Last question is also related to Amazon. AJ, total number of people working at Amazon this year, 500,000, 1 million, or 1.5 million people.
Holy cow. Okay. On first glance, I would say 500,000 because I didn't hear about a milestone of 1 million people working at Amazon, but
well, you're wrong on that.
Yeah,
it is
I was gonna say
1.5 million people.
wow, that is insane.
Isn't that insane?
Does that include contractors or that's just full-time employees?
That's full-time employees.
You're
But
blowing
does
my
include people that work at their distribution facilities.
I mean, that's... Can you let's maybe the three of us, maybe Topline will employ 1.5 million people.
1.5 million people. Hopefully never any of us have to deal with that headache. This is a good segue to our main topic. So Amazon announced 30,000 white-collar jobs are being cut a few days before their earnings. They went on to announce great earnings. Growth was back. The stock surged. They implemented what seems like the Meta strategy. Meta, a few quarters ago, announced layoffs, then announced a lot of growth and good margins. The stock surged, and Amazon had the same result. They're not alone. UPS has cut 48,000 people this year. Intel, 24,000. Accenture, 11,000. Microsoft, 7,000. Salesforce, 4,000. In total, about 112,000 people just in tech across 218 companies this year. Usually, when companies do layoffs, it's because things aren't going well. The market's down, layoffs are up. But right now, that's not necessarily the case. The market's doing well. Some are even saying too well. We're in a bubble. But layoffs are still happening. And so people are rightly questioning, why are they happening? And there's a couple of camps here. One is this is AI-driven efficiencies. These companies are ahead of the curve at utilizing AI to find productivity unlocks, and then they are cutting people as a result. The other group says, I thought 95% of AI pilots don't provide an ROI, so how can it be AI? These companies just got fat, they're getting fit. Sam, what do you think is happening? Which school of thought are you more aligned with here?
On a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is all AI and 10 is the ZERP era excess, as Chamath would say, I'm on a 7. I think it's mostly unwinding overhiring and overhiring of middle management specifically. And I think the idea, and I know Akash Gupta had this tweet that was talking about, this is all because of AI and all of these companies, especially like the old economy companies like Nestle and UPS, they all have implemented and deployed AI in production. And that's what's driving all these efficiency gains. That's a bunch of hogwash. I think particularly technology companies, have realized they can do much more with less. Now, this is also a bet on AI, but we're commingling a bunch of different words, and the word, we're saying AI, but sometimes we mean machine learning. Sometimes we just mean general automation. Sometimes we actually mean large language models and generative AI. I think technology generally, as we all know, is a deflationary force on the economy, right? It lowers prices and it enables you to do things more efficiently and spend less money. And I think what we're seeing is that companies overhired, and also they're making a bet that AI and overall automation and technology improvements will catch up, so that in the next couple of years, maybe they feel a little lean now, but the people that are left at those companies, the white collar jobs, will have more tools at their disposal to drive more per person productivity. But fundamentally, I think it's people looking at middle managers and saying, we don't need this many layers of management. We can do more with less. You got to get your hands on the keyboard. If you want a job here, you're going to have to produce more meaningful work, and let's go.
Do you think Musk is a big reason behind that? Then, if that's your take on this, that this is a lot of fact that's being caught, it feels like that Twitter example really did give people a lot to think about, that you can do so much with so much less.
I absolutely agree with you that, I mean, what did he go from 8,000 people to 2,000 people?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of different pieces at play when that Twitter thing happened, because the other thing that happened was that, you can call it wokeism, progressivism, DEI, but what Elon did was take a hatchet to entrenched, you could call them liberal or progressive um, constituencies within
Mhm.
large organizations, particularly in tech. And what we're watching is both a focus on efficiency, but also a focus that, you might not need 1,000-person ethics team at Twitter, and you don't need to be reviewing every single post, and you don't need to have a constant, back and forth with the White House about what people are allowed to say or not allowed to say on the platform. I think that there was a group of people, and you saw it when Elon was making these changes on Twitter, right? They were saying RAP this website, and everybody was expecting. Non-technologists were convinced that Twitter was going to shut down within a
Even the
couple of days.
technologists, Sam, were like, this is not going to work.
Yeah, I think. And so I think that it's a massive power redistribution and dislocation in addition to a focus on efficiency. I think there's a lot of people, I would say, people that come to mind for me are like Kara Swisher, who are used to having their opinions be really important. And she still has a very loud megaphone, I'm sure. I don't listen to her podcast anymore, but I just think it doesn't really matter what she thinks. And that's sort of the point, that the liberal media elite has lost the ability to determine how companies were organized, or at least their influence is dramatically deteriorated. That's not most of it. I do think that Elon fundamentally showed that we can do more with less, and we don't need all of these, surplus elites, as some people have said. But I also think it represents, there was a constituency, there was a group of people that were really used to having their opinions be really, really important. And they were used to being able to cancel people and to dictate the terms of a cultural discourse. I think that's something else that's happened here, which is another way of saying CEOs are less afraid of firing people.
Yeah.
And they were much more afraid 5 years ago. They were much more afraid of what would happen with social justice movements and all kinds of other movements that are happening within their workforce. And now they're just saying, I don't need all of those people. Let's figure out who actually does the work and get those people in place.
I think that's such an interesting point around when you saw layoffs happening post ZERP, you'd get these like apologetic messages across Twitter and LinkedIn from the CEOs falling on the sword. I failed. I'm so sorry. You don't get I failed. I'm so sorry anymore. You get, a high five across the board because the public market is going to appreciate this. AJ, Sam spectrum was interesting. On one side, 0 is AI, 10 is cutting middle management, cutting the inefficiencies that we developed in these orgs because of ZERP. He's a 7. Where are you and why?
I'm a 2, actually. I'm on the I'm on the AI side of the house, and
let's go. Interesting.
and I actually am like more bullish than ever around it. So sure, we could point back to Elon and starting, and I think it still feels like a cultural war to talk about wokeism and progressive. And I think that's all BS to like a fodder for a lot of the things behind the scenes. The reality is what Sam is saying is like efficiency was at the heart of those changes. And that efficiency ended up being the right thing. However, what we're actually seeing right now is that companies, certainly on the public sector, are realizing, and I actually really agree with that tweet that was just discussed there, where you have two sides forming. You have the shovels that are forming in terms of the LLMs and building those and digging for gold, and then you have the UPSs and actually making that gold a reality. And we are going to see that times 100 in the next like year. So we're just ramping up. We're at like 10% of what AI can actually show and share with the world. And once we're at 50%, look out. So I actually am saying, no, this is AI driven and it's going to get a lot crazier, a lot faster.
How do you square that with the stat that Asad qualified the question with, which is that a tiny number of AI projects actually make it into production?
Well, we've talked about that stat, that 85% of failed projects, blah, blah, blah. But that's from MIT, right? And that's like on the surface doing it. They're not actually the operators actually doing the work. I actually would say if you talk to the operators doing the work, and I'm seeing it firsthand in QuotaPath, at scale, there's so much that's going on with AI in CS and communications. I actually had a friend who said he actually talked to Meta AI customer service last week, and he's still not convinced that he wasn't talking to AI. There were clicks in the background. There were things that were like, is this person real or not real? He even asked at one point, is this a real person? And the AI, which he thinks it was AI, was like, don't worry about that. Basically hand waving the situation. So we are probably in a much more AI world than we realize. I just don't agree with that stat, Sam, as in terms of like that. For these companies, especially the bigger organizations, I don't think that 85% is calculated into Amazon, into UPS, at the companies that are leading the charge. Maybe across all of the organizations, there's thousands and thousands of AI projects, and most companies are completely lost, but they're going to figure it out, and it's going to be real. So I'm a 2.
I think there's that stat I think about a lot, and on the face of it, it makes you think of like the AI products, that of the products that are going into these pilots, 5% of them are good enough to provide ROI. But I think we've discussed a lot that you can give a stupid person and a smart person ChatGPT and you get very different results from there. And I think similarly across a lot of the AI products out there. And so the other way to look at it is there's some percent of companies and some divisions and people within those companies that are able to get an ROI from the things they're testing and the things they're taking into production, and others are not. I do think I fall closer to like a 5 on this spectrum, because I do think that some of these jobs that are being cut, you look at them, engineers, product managers, project managers, designers, recruiters, a lot of the customer support, a lot of places where AI is working decently. And if you are the best at using AI, you're probably getting above average results from there. I think those are AI driven cuts. And at the same time, I think companies are constantly learning that if you take some of these layers out of the organization, if you reduce the number of people in an organization, things just work better. I feel that most teams, the vibe of that team is defined by the lowest caliber person on that team. And I think they're cutting and they're losing their C players and their B players, and things just feel better.
And that's not AI, right? That's just typical cutting the fat off of from an organization, and that's been true since the dawn of time. So I do agree with you there that is still like we have more to go, and that's probably more in Sam. Also, Sam was a 7, I was a 2. Sam got all of the quiz answers right. I got them all wrong. Sam's probably right. So
I don't know. Maybe you're persuading me, AJ. I think. Listen, I know that you could say, why did I bring up politics, basically, and social issues? The reason I did is because I think CEOs have air cover to cut when they are still doing well in a way that they haven't in the past. That's my point. And I think to the point of what we're talking about with Amazon and Meta, these companies are doing well and they're still cutting people. And I think they feel emboldened to take those measures because they feel like they have political support. And I also hear what you're saying when it comes to feeling like they're getting gains from customer success and from use cases. I think we have to cross-reference where are the jobs being cut with where do we know that AI actually works in production. And to that point, I don't think AI works as a recruiter, but I do think that we do know that a core use case for AI is code generation. So it certainly makes sense that software engineers would be impacted if we think that this is AI driven, which it is. So which they are being impacted.
There's a lot of data now showing that ideation on the product side is getting a lot faster, and so you need less people there. When you look at project managers, there are AI tools that are enabling better project management, and so project managers are growing. Designers,
So
AI is
Atif,
definitely.
let me ask you a question. So STA is having a banner year, maybe the best year ever, and you're a recruiting firm. So and tech is cutting jobs, or at least it's not growing headcount. Are you taking share from other recruiting firms like Diversa or True or Heidrick and Struggles, or are you focused on a sector that actually is growing? Like, well, listen, 10 years ago, STA, 0% of our work was executive search, but now it's 80% of our work, and executives are actually still being hired. It's the middle managers that are being impacted. Besides your brilliance, and to AJ's point, we know that no ego on this show is bigger than yours. So we recognize that you are very, very talented. But aside from your special brand of genius, what do you attribute STA's success to? Is it taking share from other providers and that the actual executive employment market is pretty static, or actually we're cutting certain jobs, but we're investing in others? And frankly, what you're doing is an ARPU shift where you're saying, I'm going to take low price searches like SDRs, which nobody gives a crap about, and I'm going to look for CROs where I get paid 100 to 150 grand every time I find the right person.
We felt, and we spoke about this at the company level, where we said, this was soon after AI started materializing. We said that the way that this should impact the employment market is that companies will need far less people. But if you need less people, then another way of saying that is the number of people per $1 million of revenue in your business went down, so the value of each employee went up. If you have less seats to fill, you probably have a much higher bar and need for quality, as well, a lower tolerance for B players. We felt that there was signs that there could be more companies in the ecosystem. So while every company might need less people, they'll need great people, and those are always hard to find. And there will be more companies needing those great people. So instead of thinking of the talent market, we use things like unemployment rate as one metric to look at the whole market. We play in the space of, we want to focus on helping you hire from the top 5% for your hardest to fill roles in rural market. That's the market that we think is going to grow, and we're going to take market share and grow with the market. We're going to benefit on both sides. And then there's going to be stuff that is more transactional that will either just disappear because AI does it, or there's not enough difficulty associated with solving that problem for it to be profitable for us to be assigned to that. And so an SDR is the perfect example. It used to be double-digit % of our business. At one point, STA placed the most SDRs in tech in North America. Now it's probably less than 2-3% of our revenue. And so we exited those markets and focused on that. And I think that's why we're doing well. And so on that front, some interesting data that we're noticing is one of the things that shows you how hot a talent market is offer acceptance. The hotter the market, the lower the average offer acceptance rate is. And I've been talking to people at some of the other search firms, and some of them, for engineering, product, and go-to-market, focused on more complicated searches, are averaging about 40 to 50% offer acceptance rate, which is kind of what it was when the market was at its craziest a couple of years ago. And so the market over there is very hot. It's crazy. But the labor market more generally is what we are discussing.
Fair enough. Good
Awesome.
thought.
Do you, So you mentioned the 2 to 3% are now SDRs. Is there a little bit just a role change that maybe like, okay, GTM engineers, I'm guessing that doesn't make up a large percentage, but is it just the SDR? Has that shifted to a different role
No, I think it's
specifically?
still out there. We're just not focused on doing that business. I'm still think companies are hiring SDRs. And they're hiring them at a decent enough rate. If a company needed 10 SDRs, they might need 6 right now. So it's down a little bit, but it's still happening. We just don't want to be in that business. We've exited that market. Some quotes from these companies that I thought were interesting. So big tech has shown us what they're trying to do here. Amazon, and these are quotes, they're optimizing for speed and efficiency. Meta is optimizing for fewer conversations will be required now to make a decision. Google to be more efficient. Microsoft removing layers of management to increase agility. Sam, this kind of aligns a little bit with your take on what's happening within these orgs. What do you make of these comments?
I think that they were flush with cash. They still are. And I think that they realize that they can do more with less. As you're saying that, however, I am wondering aloud, there's a premise. I mean, I typically believe this premise that speed in decision making is critical, and that, maybe there were too many people involved in some of these decisions. On the other hand, you sort of wonder, are there more reckless decisions being made? Sometimes you do want some gates on decision making, and you do want some kind of review process before you barrel down a specific direction or lane that might or might not be, in line with your strategy. And so I think I guess I don't have anything particularly interesting to say, except to say that this feels like the creative destruction of capitalism hard at work. And I think that, and I also think that, one of the problems with AI, look at who we're talking about. We're talking about the same companies. There's one new entrant, maybe two, right? The two new entrants to the global conversation are NVIDIA, which is now the world's most valuable company, and OpenAI, which will be a public company worth $1 trillion. Other than that, the companies that we're talking about, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, these are the same companies we've been talking about for 20 years. One of the pernicious effects, if you can call it that, of AI is the efficiency improvements it will generate are redounding to the benefit of legacy players. And there actually isn't as much upheaval that we would want to see, I think, in terms of fresh new faces, new perspectives, and new companies that are displacing Google. I mean, many people think that Google/Alphabet is the best positioned over time to take advantage of AI, given all of their investments over, the last 30 years in machine learning and AI. So I just wonder if some of these efficiency gains are rooting the strength of, the FANG or the Magnificent Seven, whatever you want to call them, more deeply into our economic infrastructure in a way, to the point about, fears of bubbles, creates a lot of overhang when it comes to our economic dependence on the success of these companies. And I think it was, there's one index, so I'll get it right or wrong, but it was either that the Dow is now more representative of growth versus the S&P because so much of the S&P is represented by these mega cap tech stocks, and figuring out what's actually happening with, the Russell 2000, like the rest of the economy, is much harder than just watching the market go up, because the market's rise is increasingly driven by a small number of technology companies that we're all dependent on.
Well, to Sam's earlier point, which is the interesting one of like all of those quotes, Austin, that you said all sound very, very similar. And organizations and companies can take advantage of this and do like, oh, this is our opportunity to cut and or take advantage of it. I'll actually give one example, Sam, where I actually do think this is very detrimental to society, and I'm seeing this play out firsthand. During the pandemic, we all felt in the US, so neither of you have to deal with this, the rise of healthcare costs. United Healthcare just hit an all-time high, I believe 52-week high, at least in its share price. QuotaPath just received, we're a United Healthcare carrier, just received our, this is what it's going up. It's been going up 10% year over year. 20% is what we were just quoted at. 20%. Now think about that. Now we pay 100% premium of our employees today. And when I like said, well, what if we look at that differently? There was a mass pushback. Of course there was from my management team.
Yeah.
So then the question is, do we push that cost off? How do we push that cost off? Because that's $500,000 to $600,000. It's not an immaterial number
Yeah.
that we're dealing with. And so that's an area in an industry where you have just this cutback.
Just for some context, why is it up 20%? That's
Because why not? It's seriously, it's because this pursuit of, I mean, truthfully, it's because I think my own personal opinion, without doing too much research, this push of capitalism.
What a caveat.
What a caveat. I know nothing about what I'm going to say. The truth is, I know a lot about what I'm about to say. So let me actually reframe that, because I don't say anything. A big part of this is just what's going on in the public sector with these companies in the AI push and or technology. And so if you're a stockholder or shareholder in any other organization, Russell 2000 or whatever, just what Sam said, that stock everyone wants to present really good news right now. And United Healthcare is definitely as a part of that. And how do you present really good news? Well, you got to raise prices and cut back, and you got to show profits. So here we are. And so this isn't a political commentary. It's a commentary on what is actually happening in some of the industries where we wouldn't necessarily expect, public services, where we wouldn't expect necessarily the same type of stock gains as you would have at NVIDIA or at Netflix or wherever. And we are seeing the keeping up with the Joneses mentality right now, which I think is to the detriment. And all of companies like QuotaPath are going to have to go through this next year.
Now is not the time to excuse yourself from the conversation and to go off into the woods and say, you know what, I'm going to make wooden clocks, by hand. I think that now is the time to stay in the game. If you're going to do a career transition, it has to be to an adjacent area that leverages your existing expertise. I don't think there's a lot of tolerance right now for basically people thinking that, I'll become a fractional. It's like, but nobody.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
Nobody needs you. So
don't do that.
You're going to go from fractional to unemployed. I think
I
now
like
is the time for. Go ahead,
Sam
AJ.
is just getting that off his shoulder. For anyone that's going to talk to Sam,
We're crying out loud. Stop it.
please jump into this episode to take that.
I just think people have to be very careful, because sometimes, you want all of these new age isms to be true. You want to be able to say, follow your heart, do what you love. If you're not feeling it, pursue your dream, take a leap of faith. Do all of those things as long as you're qualified to do those things. But I think if you don't have the requisite skill set, it's not the time to leap into a low margin, slow growth industry and try and be a solopreneur of a business that's not going to work.
I think about the fact that if you are Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, if you met a real 10x engineer today, would you not hire them? They'd hire them every one of them would hire that person, but they're letting go of software engineers. And so they're letting go and hiring kind of at the same time for the same role. And so what are they doing there? They're like, okay, you're not the right person. You're not performing at the right level, or you're not using these technologies the right way. Your productivity is not where it needs to be. And so we're getting rid of this person. We're hiring somebody who can use AI well. And I think I still talk to a lot of people, and their appetite to be that like cyborg, which is how I think of, the employees now, is like, you kind of have to be like you plus AI to be really viable and have the strong career. And very few people are investing enough time, energy, or even are open-minded enough to go become that cyborg. But I think that's the only way you get to stay in these functions and have a stable career with lots of upward mobility from here on out. Okay, this has been a good conversation. We are, as always, going to end it with a question. And the question for you is that at the beginning of your career, when you look back now, what was a pretty big blind spot that you had then, that you look back now and you kind of laugh at that blind spot? Does anything come to mind?
Sure.
Sam?
Hey, lots of things. All the things.
People, Maya Angelou's quote was a blind spot for me. People don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. And being right is not enough. It doesn't matter if you're right if everybody hates you.
That
Not
is
that everybody hated me, but I could be
each
condescending.
some.
I can be very smug. I can be very condescending. I can be very assertive and dismissive of contradictory ideas. And you leave a meeting thinking that you've won because you're correct when nobody wants to support you because you didn't leave them feeling good.
That's a
Similar
big
to
one.
that, I think that go hand in hand. Something I was really, really acutely terrible at, and I'm still trying to improve, is just being a better listener and active listening. You learn that quickly in sales on sales calls, and some of that rubs off in your everyday life. But I think that that's an area where I very early was terrible at, got a little bit better, and still am working on today. And I think they go hand in hand. And what Sam was saying, if you're an active listener, then you have the intuition on what is going to make someone feel quote unquote better, their experience better at the end of it.
I love both of those. Mine was I just didn't understand how big the economy was. Like, we were talking about this today when I was looking up how many tech companies there are. And I looked at this data and even I was like 700,000 companies. That's a lot of tech companies, right? And I think when you are in university, everybody hears of those same names. You hear of the big banks, you hear of the big consulting firms, the big shops in every segment of the market that usually university grads are thinking about, right? Consulting, finance, CPG, etc. And the world just felt a lot smaller. And so opportunity felt a lot smaller. And now you realize there's so many more doors to go and knock on. If you're a young person trying to enter the economy, there's so many more doors to knock on that aren't those places. And they're probably better places to work. And the more that you understand how the system works, how big all of this is, I feel like you feel more confident that you can build something really meaningful within it. And so the size and scale of it was mine.
Great thoughts. It's been another wonderful episode of Topline, everybody. AJ's got a train to catch. He's going up to the Big Apple. Awesome. Great seeing you. Give us 5 stars on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're on our YouTube channel, smash the old subscribe button.
Smash it.
Smash it right in your face.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. You little smasher. Little smashy poos.